Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I will introduce you to the Marc Beausejour. I'm so excited for you to meet him. Enjoy.
Greetings, I'm Jaquita Zachary Johnson, the author of Gary the Great Gator. And of course, I enjoy promoting literacy and reading and authorship. I have an amazing author with me today who will tell you who he is and more about his book. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me here, Mrs. Johnson.
Yes.
My name is Marc Beausejour. I'm actually first generation Haitian American.
So take us on your journey.
Absolutely. The funny thing is my journey actually started when I actually started by drawing characters. So my journey didn't start by writing. It started by drawing those strips. And that was the beginning of me drawing stories. I make stories because it was basically, like I said, an outlet from otherwise difficult background and situation where I grew up. So I grew up in Richmond Hill, New York, which was right by Jamaica, Queens, which some parts were good, but back in those days, it was not a really good area. And my parents being Haitian from the islands, it was a they were very strict on me. The first book is called Rising Higher Than Ever. This book actually came when I actually got introduced to poetry in middle school. I was invited to a talent show back in junior high school 217 in New York. I actually won the talent show.
Oh, wow.
And for the poetry. And someone once told me that I should be doing this. And I didn't really take them seriously at first because it was just poetry. And then 2 years later, I moved to Georgia, age 14, still writing poems. And I actually used to write poems for church talent shows and used to enroll in open mic nights at the youth groups there. And I used to, they were so enthralled in my poetry. And then one day in the year 2009, one of my friends, and he used to nickname me the Haitian Homer. If you remember, Homer was the author of the Iliad and the Odyssey. And he used to call me Haitian Homer because I used to write a lot. And he said, Mark, you have a lot of poems. So I used to post them on Facebook. He said you should compile those poems and turn them into a book. Yeah, so.
And so that's what you did.
Yep, that's what I did. I compiled them and took all the poems plus new ones I'd written at the time and turned it into one book. And this book specifically has 20 poems and short stories that, explain the inspirations that led to those poems.
Sounds good.
The next book is called The Preacher's Web. So in this book, this is where I take my next journey and I migrate from writing poetry to writing novels. And it wasn't, I didn't know I was going to write a novel initially when I actually released Rising Higher Than Ever. But because I was writing short stories in Rising Higher Than Ever, the idea just came to me, maybe I could write stories. And then God kind of took me from where in the beginning when I was a kid drawing stories to now being able to write stories. And then, so what this book is about, my first book, I wanted to keep it in a church, but I wanted to make it to the point where it was a little bit controversial. So this is the first book that did have some situations that would probably deem too much for kids, I would say, because in this book, the preacher, his name is Mike Hillman. He's a pastor in Queens, New York, and basically he wants to invoke change in his community because he sees his community ravaged by drugs, he sees his community ravaged by prostitution, and he sees his community ravaged by gangs. And basically he wants to make change, but he has his own internal struggles. Next, we got Adia's Ballad. Now, this I consider to be a sequel from The Preacher's Web, because in this book, a girl's sister passes away. She gets murdered. And this book basically talks about the little sister of the victim. She becomes a big pop star. She earns a lot of money, but at the same time, the celebrity gets to her head. And then I got my final book here, which is called Fires of Justice. This is actually the newest one that came out. This came out April of this year. And this book is about an English professor. His name is LaBelle Thomas. He used to live in New York, but he was given a job offer to come teach in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay.
So finally, you get a migration from New York to Atlanta.
Okay.
He teaches at a Metro Atlanta high school. And what this book is about is when he comes to Atlanta and he teaches, there is a girl, one of his students, who is infatuated with him. And she tries to get with him, but he keeps refusing her advances because he's married, he has a child, and one day, it escalates.
Okay.
One confrontation turns violent, and then she accuses him of a crime that he didn't commit.
How can I get it?
First of all, it's available on Amazon. If you go to Amazon.com and you just type in my name, Marc Beausejour, all four books will show up. I have a fifth one too that I didn't bring in.
No, you're fine. How can we follow you on social media and all of that?
My social media sites, my Instagram is Black Cyrano. And people may ask, why do I choose the name Black Cyrano? I use that name because one of my favorite characters, I'm a literary fanatic as well as history.
That's perfect.
And one of my favorite literary characters is Cyrano de Beausejour. And if you remember what his character was about, he was a guy who used to express himself by writing letters for his friend, even though he was in love with a woman, but he didn't know how to express himself. So his friend was attracted to the same woman, and he used his letters to basically express himself. But the girl thought it was his friend writing the letters. So I feel in a way that my writing is used to give people a voice that can't speak for themselves, or sometimes I want to express myself, but I can't say it, so I just write it. And when other people read it, they're really reading my journey through the characters that I'm portraying.
It sounds good.
Yep.
Black Cyrano, guys. And that's on
Instagram. And then you can follow me on Facebook too at my name, Marc Beausejour. And then I also have Snapchat under the same name, Black Cyrano. And the links to order the books are also on Instagram and Facebook. And I also have a Facebook book page called Black Cyrano.
Perfect. I am so proud of you.
Thank you.
Absolutely proud of you. And thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes,
I
sir.
appreciate it.
Now, listen, before you go, I mean, I am just amazed with all your accomplishments. What advice would you give someone that wants to write or they are aspiring authors?
What I would do is I would tell them to just go somewhere quiet, or if you need music, go somewhere where you're in a zone by yourself and just start putting words down. Start putting words down, whatever it is. Even if it's not something that you don't want other people to see, but just start putting words down. Because that's how my journey started. My journey started when I just started putting words down. I didn't know what I was writing. I didn't know why I was writing, but I had to express myself.
Sounds good.
And then when you do that, then the ideas will start coming. So my advice would be just to get everything put down and just reflect on what you're writing and just ask God to give you the inspiration.
Yes.
So that's very important also.
Awesome. Thank you again for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, you guys, right on.
Thank you guys so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed meeting Mr. Marc Beausejour. To find out more about him, click the link in the description box. Please subscribe, like, and share. Have an amazing day.